Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a Capital Hungry Rant weekend webinar. Can you guys hear me? How's everybody doing this evening, afternoon, morning, depending where you are in the world? We know we got capital hungry viewers all around the world, so shout out to everybody, all the capital hungry hyenas. Okay, so as you may or may not know, if you go to the Capital Hungry channel or you follow along my YouTube videos, it's not like my YouTube channel's big or anything, but I've been doing a lot of webinars discussing my viewpoints on society, the pandemic, and more been discussing the economic side of the whole pandemic and the economic power play that we saw take place as the pandemic crisis provided a lot of opportunity to the 1%. So you know that I kept making webinars and rants discussing everything from the 1% side and from an economic standpoint of the historical repetition, how we've seen this happen time and time again in history, whether it be through physical warfare, any previous pandemics, financial market crash for whatever catalyst. This historical cycle keeps repeating, and every single time there's a crisis, it ends up being a huge opportunity for the people who have the resources to take advantage of it, and it always ends up taking away from the 99%, right? So here we are going to be more focusing on the psychological impacts that the pandemic has brought on the 99% of people, and how, in my opinion, there has been more negative impact on certain societies' mentality rather than their physical health from this virus. When we look at the overall numbers, death rate, recovery rate compared to the overall populations and other previous situations we've had in the past as well. A lot of mainstream media outlets have been only focusing on the fear around the viral pandemic and been ignoring how it's been used as a tool to force solitude and further control on the masses, make them even more obedient, make them even more mentally feeble, make them even more addicted to alcohol or other substances, and make them easier to reform and conform to certain ideals and agendas, right? So we're going to be more reflecting about that. Now, the best way to give examples is always through obviously looking at actual research papers or looking at history itself. Okay, so you guys can read the title as it is. This is more discussing, on my opinion, of the mental lockdown, the psychological impacts of forced solitude and control. Okay, throughout history, the strong have always conquered the weak through the constant pursuit and chase of further power, which the greed and hunger for that has always been endless. Whether it's been conquerors through history like Genghis Khan, or stories we hear about different war powers like what Hitler was doing with Nazi Germany. We've seen these cycles on repeat of certain individuals having an agenda, ideals, and trying to conform and reform the masses to support their agenda and ideals to at the end of the day conquer and gain more power, right? Through this, we have always known that one of the easiest ways to conform a group or society is through fear or removing their basic rights. And this has always been used as a method or punishment to have a group or party conform or reform to a set of rules and guidelines. So let's just go through what I have out here. Let's start with this. Humans have always used forced solitude and removal of basic rights as a method of punishment or a tool to have a person, group, or party conform or reform to a set of rules and guidelines. Okay? Solitude, forced solitude, imprisonment, or the removal of rights has never been an incentive for human beings. no one's ever cheering about any of these negative traits that have always been used as a system of control and to further extend power. Examples of this are throughout history when we've seen repetition of slavery, countries or parties with little civil or human rights, global prison systems through history. Prison is a $1 billion business, but it's always been a method to have individuals who go against societal rules be forced into that solitude, be forced into this easier mental state to either make them more obedient and conform back to the rules of society, or forever rot away in that prison, right? There's even more detailed examples of that through the prison system, such as solitary confinement. If you guys go in your own free time and you research the mental impacts of solitary confinement on prisoners, it's absolutely disgusting. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing, in my opinion, besides killing a man, there's nothing you can do worse to a man than solitary confine him. It's one of the easiest ways to mold a person's brain. That's why also through history you've seen various torture or interrogation methods by any source of power, whether it be by police or whether it be by warlords back in the day. It was always done on that one-on-one solitary or into a solitary confinement type of method, right? Through these different examples, even with modern education systems, to give the example, you are being taught to follow a set of rules and guidelines, bells and whistles, and do everything on a schedule as per that society's rules. And if you don't, you will either get punished or fail. Now, some of these examples I gave you are the more easy to understand examples because it's very easy to physically identify it. You go, oh wow, slavery's not good. These people are being forced to work against their free will for the potential benefit of this singular party. The global prison system's not good. It's $1 billion system that literally takes humans and cages them up like animals to get them to conform or reform back to societal rules, or forever rot in there and just be feeding the system. Right? Torture or interrogation, you can easily tell that these are bad and easy to identify examples of the removal of basic rights. But even the modern education systems, people have to understand it's the same thing, right? The modern education system is just the monetization of knowledge, and there's a full control over that by certain parties, and it's $1 billion business at the end of the day. You have to follow a set of rules, wake up at a certain time, go to classes at a certain time, have to meet XYZ criteria. And if you don't, you're not going to be punished in the sense of going to prison, but you will be punished in the sense of failure, not getting that degree, not being able to get that job you want, not being able to support yourself in this societal system. Okay? So understand why I added modern education systems in there. The reason is to contrast against the more easier to identify examples of this solitary confinement and control, or following this rigid structure. Because it doesn't always have to be so black. It doesn't have to be so black and white as the prison systems or something like slavery. It can be something more accepted by society, but is still just as bad, like the modern education systems, which leaves students forever in debt, constantly stressed, on edge, filled with anxiety, depression, trying to follow the strict schedule, rules, guidelines, pay their tuition, survive, etc., etc. The school systems themselves are $1 billion business. And then for the banks, the school loan system and student loans is $1 billion business too. It goes hand in hand, right? The reason why I want people to understand this contrast is so when we start giving examples in current time of the lockdown that has been placed on countries and societies, you're going to understand the repeating patterns of trying to get people to conform, reform, and wither them down mentally and physically. Make them a lot easier to mold. Okay? So now we understand this dark side, I guess we can call it. And why is this the dark side? Well, because humans, regardless of introvert or extrovert personality traits, are all social beings by nature when you're looking at the data of the masses. Meaning humans are not naturally meant to be in a lockdown or prison state. That goes against natural human order that has developed society. The way we have gotten society to where it is so far against survival is through traits such as communication, cooperation, physical interaction, sharing of ideas. And then you have the collective working together to bring society where it is. Our global infrastructure came from these types of traits. At the end of the day, you wouldn't have all the buildings you see, road systems, water systems, sewage systems, global networks, power grids, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is this has always been used as a tool of control, punishment, and to further extend power. And this is the natural order of a human's mentality. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert based on your personality trait, nobody is meant to be enslaved. Whether it be a physical enslavement or a mental enslavement is what we saw with the lockdowns. Okay? So now, understanding all of that, when you look at the science behind COVID virus, what is the survival and recovery rate of COVID? Has anybody looked this up? Huh? It has, if I'm not mistaken, and you can always fact check this yourself, a 90 to 95% survival rate. Even higher. But if I say any higher, people are gonna be like, "Oh, that's not true. That's fake." Okay? The symptoms of COVID are very similar to other regular influenza symptoms. Yes, through mainstream media, we've seen that very young children or old senior citizens can have a higher mortality rate that comes from the COVID virus. But we have to understand that that would happen with any type of disease. And like that, why is common sense being lost? If there was any type of other viral pandemic, flu, disease, or anything else, of course the elderly who already have weaker immune systems, or children whose immune systems haven't fully developed yet, would have a higher risk of either contracting the virus or disease or dying from it. That would be with anything across the board. That could be with bronchitis, that could be with, you know what I mean? It could be with anything like that. So you have to understand, yes, the virus is real. Yes, the pandemic was real and people got sick and people died. But when you look at the numbers compared to the overall population, the deaths are microscopic compared to the population of the earth and compared to what they were blowing up in mainstream media. Something we were not focusing on was the mental impacts and the flexing of power that was going on behind the scenes to further extend power of the 1% against the 99%. Because what have we seen as a byproduct of the viral pandemic? Global lockdowns, right? What were the rules and guidelines that came with global lockdowns? Well, you had small businesses and majority of businesses and economies shut down. You were forced to stay at home and forced to lock down and forced to follow a certain set of rules and guidelines. You had to put a cloth on your face. It never had to be a medical grade mask. It just had to be a face covering. You had to follow a certain set of rules and guidelines of curfews, of how long you could stay out, of where you can drive to, border checks, what's closed, what's open. Does that not seem very similar to a prison system? Right? So let's look at examples here quickly. What we have to look at is the influence of normative influence. Normative influence is the first type. Normative influence is operating when people go along with the crowd just because what they are concerned of what others think of them, and they don't want to look out or step out because of being a target of criticism. This isn't something that's discussing the pandemic. These are examples from 1956 of powerful normative influence, examples through college studies from 2005. This is just historical repetition. Do we not see that even though the virus itself has a high survival rate, even though that it's similar to any other type of influenza, even though you had a flood of all these vaccines randomly come out in 6 months that got emergency approved, have we not seen normative influence leading into conformity of society through the byproduct of the pandemic being the lockdowns? The lockdowns and societies shutting down with the rules being set by the governments that were pick and choose based on their agenda is what had the biggest influence on conformity and leading to normative influence. Do you understand? So let's read this again. When normative influence is operating, people go along with the crowd because they're concerned about what others think of them. We don't want to look out of step or become targets of criticism just because we like different kinds of music or dress differently. Well, let's simplify this music or dress differently and let's replace this with the mask mandate. Right? How powerful is normative influence? Consider a classic study conducted many years ago by Solomon Asch. The participants were male college students who were asked to engage in seemingly simple tasks. An experimenter standing several feet away held up a card and depicted one line on the left side and 3 lines on the right side. The participant's job was to say aloud which of the 3 lines on the right side were the same lengths as the lines on the left side. 16 cards were presented at the time, and the correct answer on each was so obvious as to make the task a little boring except for one thing. The participant was not alone. There were 6 other people in the room who also gave their answers to the line judgment task aloud. More so, though, pretended to be fellow participants. So there were judges in there who pretended to be participants who were giving the wrong answer to be an experimenter. Right? So you had the 6 set of college students who knew exactly what the right answer was, but then you had 2 or 3 actual judges in there who were giving the incorrect answer, but the study came that the majority of people followed the incorrect answer due to normative influence, following the crowd, not wanting to look wrong. Do you understand? This is the main reason why the majority of people have been following the rules of the lockdown set by governments, even though some of the rules make absolutely zero logical sense. For example, there are stores where you could go in the store and go to the grocery aisle, but certain other aisles are completely saran wrapped and closed off. There was pick and choose in Canada where the LCBOs, the liquor stores, stayed open throughout the entire year and a half of the pandemic. The liquor store stayed open. Does anybody know why the liquor store stayed open? Because the government and people in power know that there would be more people in the hospital emergency room for alcohol withdrawal symptoms rather than getting the COVID virus. Because they know how many people smoke, drink, and are addicted to these substances that fuel the 1% and keep them mentally weak and feeble and easily to mold and follow suit. What I'm trying to prove to you guys is on the mental side, the majority of society did not follow the rules of the lockdown because they thought the rules were correct. They followed the rules because of normative influence. Do you understand? This is a psychological trait of conformity. But through the pandemic, what led to society, okay, let me rephrase this. It wasn't just the normative influence that started it off. Because first you have to convince the majority of people that there is a real fear here. There's real concern. We must follow the rules. That doesn't come from conformity. That comes from obedience. First, you must get the majority of society to be obedient and follow the set rules and guidelines. Then the conformity for the rest of society follows suit with that normative influence. It's a step-by-step process of that psychological manipulation and mental imprisonment. We didn't see any sets of inhumane policies or torture like what the German Nazi leaders did, or what you saw here with the victims of a Cambodian dictator in 1975 or 79. But we did see a set of rules and guidelines that took away a lot of our basic human rights. And if we didn't follow those rules and guidelines, we will be punished with either prison time or monetary tickets. Like, you get fucking fined. Do you understand? So first they had to set up the following of orders. And okay, so let's start from here. Although we may be influenced by people around us, the more we recognize, whether we conform to the norm is up to us. But sometimes decisions about how to act are not so easy. So sometimes conformity in that normative influence is not enough. Especially if you have a more educated society who goes, wait a second, this mask mandate doesn't make sense. It's not a medical mask, it's just any type of cloth on my face. Wait a second, how come the liquor stores have still been open? Wait a second, why did all these small businesses close down but Walmarts and Costco stayed open? Wait a second, why is this one state open but this state closed? Why is one part of Canada open but one part of Canada closed? How come Vietnam over there has triple the population of Canada and they've been out of lockdown the whole year, but Canada's one of the most least dense populated countries and we've been on lockdown? Wait a second. You ask questions. So that's why you need the two-hit combo. You need a double whammy on society. You gotta hit them with the jab, then you gotta fucking hit them with the uppercut. First, it starts with the obedience. You have your set rules and guidelines set by the people who are in power, which goes from the government, which goes from the central banks to the government to the corporations to the police force down the line. And those rules were set with the lockdowns, were they not? Curfews were set. What stores you could go to, what stores you could not go to, what was open, what was not open, what you could do, what you could not do. And it was also enforced. Because if you didn't follow that, you would either get prison time or you would have to pay a fine. That is obedience. We have seen obedience used, rinse and repeat through history. Right? So it started out with the obedience and then with the conformity. Is everybody following along so far? Okay, so now that you understand that, when you have a society where the masses are generally following a systematic oppression of obedience and normative influence conformity, this leads to a lot of negative mental impacts on that person's psyche. Okay, let's look at this. This is an example for Canada, and this is exactly what we're talking about here. This is exactly what I was talking about here. Okay, let's start here with the CDC.gov. The coronavirus pandemic has been associated with mental health challenges related to morbidity and mortality caused by the disease and due to mitigation activities. including the physical impact of physical distancing and stay-at-home orders. This is the CDC understanding the impact and psychological impact of the physical distancing, stay-at-home orders, mitigation activities, and lockdown. But how come that hasn't been shown on mainstream media? How come that's not being exploded on the news every day? The negative impacts of the lockdowns. How it's leading to an increase of substance abuse. How it's leading to an increase of depression, anxiety, suicide. Because that's not meant to be shown. This is what's supposed to happen. This is how you get society weak, feeble, easily to mold and follow suit. Okay? Symptoms of anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, increased considerably in the United States compared to the same period in 2019. So an exponential increase compared to years prior when there was no pandemic, when there wasn't the COVID going on. To assess mental health, substance use, and suicidal ideation during the pandemic, panel surveys were conducted amongst adults aged above 18 years across the United States during June 24th and 30th, 2020. Overall, 40%, almost half of respondents, reported at least one adverse mental or behavioral health condition. These are the numbers. This is from the CDC. This is a quick summary. Communities, societies have faced mental health challenges related to COVID-19 associated morbidity, mortality mitigation activities. Okay? So the numbers are right there. A 50% increase is a massive, massive increase. Especially if you guys have been watching my previous webinars where society is already mentally weak and feeble. Where society is already going through a mental sickness where men have testosterone levels drop 50% in 40 years. And you also have depression, suicide, and mental disorder rates increased exponentially even before the pandemic with the Western side of society. Now, when people are mentally depressed, when people are feeling anxious, when people are feeling these different types of negative mental disorders, we can call them, what will a mentally weak and feeble person run to? Short-term satisfaction, something to numb the pain, something to make them feel a little bit better. Well, guess what? That goes to an increase of alcohol and other substance abuse. We can see that, especially with Canada here. Conducted by Nanos for the Canadian Centre on Substance Abuse and Addiction, April 2020. The purpose of this study is to benchmark alcohol and cannabis consumption during the COVID-19 outbreak, as well as drivers of behavior. Canadians who report consuming more alcohol most often cite a regular lack of schedule, boredom, and stress, and those who report consuming more cannabis for the same reasons. Canadians who report consuming less alcohol were often due to less social gatherings and opportunities to drink, but they end up drinking alone at home instead. 7 in 10 Canadians who report currently staying at home, staying home, report their alcohol consumption has increased or stayed the same. 94% of Canadians report that 9 out of 10 Canadians are following the stay-at-home orders. Right? So you're seeing an increase in, you're seeing a 36% increase in alcohol and other substance abuse by Canadian citizens, a 30% increase. On top of the other mental health issue increases and everything else going on that's associated that we were discussing, that comes along with the obedience and conformity methods exercised by the 1%. Yeah, roughly 30%, 30 to 35% increase in consumption. And the majority reason being 51% of the reason, 40% of the reason is stress, 50% is the boredom and the lack of regular schedule, which is exerting this and removing this. Okay? And the study I did is just an example. Not the study I did. Sorry, the study I showed you guys for the alcohol increase is just an example for Canada. And you guys have to understand that this report with that 30% increase and 50% reason due to 25%. Sorry, this was done April 2020. This was 1 year ago. How many Canadians do I got in the chat right now, especially from Ontario? How many Ontario Canadians in the live chat right now? How much worse has this all gotten in the last year, do you think? Because I could personally tell you, we have not been out of lockdown and the rules and restrictions have just gotten worse. And this has for sure increased, in my opinion, to at least 35-40%. Because this study was also conducted only a few months into the pandemic. The pandemic started roughly March 2020. This study was conducted April 2020. Now it's 2021, May, June. It's June 2021. Ontario, Canada, still locked down. You know what I mean? So this is probably, if we go back here and try to find a more recent support from 2021. Yeah, here's a good one. Canada's from 2021. What's the date here? So they already understand that economic crisis, natural disasters have an increase in alcohol consumption on top of the rules of conformity. So it's still 30% here. The mental health issue increase was 50% of individuals surveyed. We also proved the methods used of obedience and how society follows suit with conformity and normative influence. Okay? So what I want people to understand with this is not to be scared, and it's not to have fear. It's to understand that you have the power in your own free will to go against this. And even with your, like, for example, okay, if you guys want to know, I want to keep this pretty short and sweet, just on the psychological impacts of the forced solitude and control, which we already did, right? Because I have tons and tons of other webinars which talk about why this is happening, which you guys can just go to my channel and see. So anybody who's asking those further questions, just so this doesn't end up being like a 3-hour webinar, if you come here and you watch starting here, the pandemic rant, 1% versus the 99%, and then you watch we are in a mentally weak and sick society, and then how the masses are living in blissful ignorance, how to break out of it and what you can do to change as an individual, the 1% and the war on masculinity, the importance of masculinity and femininity in society, and this one, choose one, growth or feelings. So the issue is when these types of topics of conversation are brought to the table, because it's not what people want to hear and it's very doom and gloom, people can get very depressed just even having discussions about it. Okay? What I'm trying to share with everyone is that as individuals, there are certain steps that we can take to bring ourselves out of this mental prison. And we have to start, and any change in society has to start with the individual, and then the individual starts to influence their family and friends, then the family and friends influence the community, then the community influences the society, and then it moves from that point. But that's never going to change when you have the 99% in this mental prison right now, and has been for the last year. With all of this removed, with proven with the conformity and obedience when we are looking at those data reports, right? Proving the historical repetition of obedience and conformity, proving the increase in substance abuse, proving the increase in mental health disorders that came along with the lockdown measures. Remember, getting the virus didn't cause the increase in the increase in substance abuse or the increase in mental health issues. The lockdowns did. The enforcement of the obedience did. Following those set rules and guidelines, otherwise you're going to get punished for it. That's what caused that. And then having the conformity and normative influence of society following suit. And also the repetition of having it month after month, day after day, week after week. It's been a year and a half of this bullshit. With a virus that has one of the highest survival and recovery rates. With the lowest death rate compared to the actual populations of who got sick and compared to the population of the earth. Right? So I just wanted to address this and the facts associated behind this, the historical repetition. And I also wanted to give people the advice that is given in my other webinars if you have further questions of how you can at least improve your life and mentality. So I would suggest starting from the pandemic rant, going from the modern society is mentally weak and sick. These are more positive webinars as well of how to break out of it and how you can improve yourself every single day. So these ones are great webinars to watch, and this is a great one to watch as well on how you can break out of this and change as the individual. Because we have to talk about something else before I go. You have to understand, another reason why this conformity and normative influence is so active is, especially in Canada and North America, 90% of the population, their survival and everybody's survival, modern day survival, and how much stress or freedom you're going to have in your life is linked to the dollar. Right? We can all agree to that. Without the dollar, you can't put food on the table, you can't put clothes on your back, you can't have a shelter, you can't really survive in the modern world. And that's just the way it is, in the nature of the beast. The global power control structure has been based around the monetary system. So you have to understand when you go look at the statistics that the same 90% of people also live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have skill sets or disposable income or resources that can give them any freedom or even time to really think. So they have no choice to conform. They can't risk losing their job. They can't risk going to jail. They can't risk fighting back. They can't risk like looking like an outcast in society or going against the status quo. They have a fear against all of that because they won't be able to survive without it. You know? That's why when you have a few people who have skill sets or knowledge and are not ignorant to these topics that is the reality of the world, they're usually seen as the outcasts. They're usually seen as conspiracy theorists. You guys know that I'm from Canada, right? I'm from Ontario, Canada. I was talking about the same stuff about the mental impact of the pandemic, about the economic impact of the pandemic, and you guys know financially and economics wise, you guys know I know my shit. You guys know I've used that information to create business, to become a successful trader in my own right. Like, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm well above the 90%, especially in my country, in terms of income earning potential at my age. It's just, this isn't gloating. That's just the way it is. Through my pursuit of developing a skill set, gaining more knowledge, and doing all that, I have earned a lot more money. Well, guess what? What a lot of people don't realize is, as a Canadian citizen, I pay more in taxes, federal taxes to the government through my income, than 2 to 3 average Canadian families. And you guys know, when I was sharing this information, I had people from my college and high school say, "We don't want you here. Leave our country." Can you believe that? I had these average minimum wage working fucking losers who have no clue how the monetary system works, no clue how government works, don't even know what an interest rate or taxes are, living off mommy and daddy, doing their day-to-day shit, being zombies, say, "We don't want you here. Leave our country." When I'm trying to grow as an individual and grow the people around me so we could actually improve our country. We could actually take some of our freedoms, rights, and power back as the people, as the collective. And they told me, "We don't want you here. Leave our country." Everything I said, they took it as I hate Canada. When I was born here, raised here, created businesses here, through my spending, I probably spend more in this country than 2 to 3 families, and I pay more in taxes than 2 to 3 average families. I do more for the economy and the country than probably 10 people. That's just statistics. And I'm getting told to leave the country by somebody who contributes nothing, or the majority of people who contribute nothing, just because of, guess what? They've fallen victim to conformity. They've fallen victim to that obedience, to the systematic oppression of how society has been developed. They have the 99% mindset. They think the government's doing what's right. They think everything's good. Don't worry about all this shit. It's just the way it is. As they work paycheck to paycheck until death. So think about that. Think about the psychology of someone like me just bringing these conversations to the table and being told by multiple people to leave the country if I don't like it. And then when I ask them, what do you do for your country? I pay more in taxes, I contribute more to the economy. Share to me what you do. They got nothing to say. Just leave the country in ignorance. It's crazy. That's how mentally weak and sick and feeble society is. These were men. These were Canadian men saying, "Fucking leave the country." You know what I mean? I was like, bro, do you not understand that if we both went to the government officials right now and said, "Hey, look at our papers, look at our history in Canada, and pick a person you want to leave the country," they would pick 10 of you guys to leave over me, because all they're gonna look at is, "God damn, this one guy pays 10 times more taxes than these guys. He actually makes us money." Oh, what are you guys? Oh, you guys like to drink Tim Hortons and wear Go Canada shirts? Get the fuck out of here. That's just the nature of the beast. You know what I mean? They think that their fake patriotic behavior of supporting consumerism, they think that if they went to Justin Trudeau and said, get him out of the country, they would kick me out. No, they go to the tax man and say, hey, search this guy up and search these 10 people up. Oh, wow, these 10 people are hillbillies. They all earn below 50K. This guy's in the top 1% of earners in Canada. He paid more taxes than 3 Canadian families. Why the fuck would we kick him out? It's that simple. Everything's a money game. Everything's a numbers game at the end of the day. Especially as a man. As a man, regardless of what you think, nobody gives a fuck about your feelings or survival. Nobody cares. You are only valued based on your resources and what you can produce, whether that be on your knowledge, experience, skill sets, influence, network, or money. That's all men have to show our value in this society. Everything else is emotions, and guess what? Go be an emotional man and see what that gets you in this world. Right? What's it gonna get you? Nothing. Homeless, or just depending on your mom and dad. Working some dead-end jobs depending on mommy and daddy, always worried about your feelings and bullshit. You know what I mean? So this is, like, Canada has been on lockdown since March 2020. It's June 2021. I still haven't even personally met a person who has had COVID over this whole year and a half. Right? And all I'm trying to do is inspire others, not scare them. Because don't you guys understand that even through this pandemic, even through as Canada's been locked down, have you not seen me still trying to motivate and inspire others to go learn as much as they can about the financial markets or economies, to go push their body to your peak genetic point, to eat better, to remove as many substances out of your system as you can? Because it starts with the individual. I've already been doing that for myself. Now, I have to do it and spread it to my friends and family, and to the people I'm around, which is also the social media influence I have. Even though it's small, it starts with the individual. Then it starts with the family and friends in the circle group. Then it starts with the community. Then it grows. That's how you bring change to a society. But people who are mentally weak and feeble, people who have their testosterone levels as low as possible, who have especially men who have no masculinity, they can't fight back. They won't even talk back. They'll sit there, nod their head, and shut up, and go to their dead-end job every fucking day until they fucking die. And it makes me sad that the people are so oblivious to this. When you don't even have to be a trader, you don't have to be an investor. You can go develop a skill set within anything else on the side and put that time and effort into it. But 99% don't. You know? So I don't want to make this all doom and gloom. You guys see me trying to motivate all of you every single day, every single week, in all aspects of life. Not just saying, hey guys, come join Capital Hungry and then your level. Hey guys, come join Capital Hungry and your life will level up. No, you don't see me do that. Capital Hungry in itself, the name is a fucking movement. It's not just for money. It's just you're hungry. You have a hunger that can't be fed. You're a lion. You gotta keep pushing that. Physically, mentally, financially, you're just fucking hungry. You don't want to slow down. You don't want to listen to others. You know that you have all the resources and tools at your fingertips. You can go learn whatever you want. You can go do whatever you want. And you can just constantly stay hungry on that path. It's a movement. It's an entire lifestyle. It's not, you know what I mean? And you don't have to join Capital Hungry to be a part of that. This isn't about marketing. This isn't about advertising. This isn't about selling something. This is about having people fucking wake the fuck up and not based on a conspiracy, based on statistics, based on the stats from the psychological side now, based on the stats of the fucking scientific side of men's testosterone dropping 50%, based on the stats of the economic side and the opportunity crisis brings. And what, like, come on, what else do people need? You have the psychological mental stats, you have the scientific stats of people being fatter than ever, unhealthier than ever, more depressed than ever. You have the economic stats. What else do people need to wake the fuck up and start making their own choices? You know what I mean? It's so aggravating. And then I got some bums tell me to leave the country. Like, oh man. Like, and then you know how lost the society is. I got told to leave the country because I got told I was trying to fearmonger people. What? I'm trying to fearmonger people? That's how fucking lost society is. Think about that. You know what I mean? But yeah, thanks for attending this Capital Hungry rant, everybody. On the Saturday afternoon. Canada still on Ontario, Canada. I still can't go to the regular gym or to regular stores or restaurants until July 26th. 2 more months. You know what I mean? And I'm still out here trying to give you guys information on the markets, do live streams. Obviously, Capital Hungry Private, I try to go as hard as possible because those members pay for my time and value. But man, I'm just trying to say, like, it's not easy. It's fucking hard, man. This shit's depressing. This shit's fucking depressing. You know? I just want people to understand that you can talk about this stuff. We can talk about it, we can address it, we can dissect it, and then we can change it. You know what I mean? We can change it. We can make choices ourselves as individuals to change it. You know? But usually these webinars obviously don't get as many views. Like all the webinars I've done on society, the pandemic, masculinity, they don't get as many views because people usually just show up to the London live streams to make money. But isn't that proof itself? How many people show up to the London live streams with almost extreme confidence Jeeves gonna guide us properly and either teach us something tonight or make us money? Come on, be honest here. How many of you? And all I'm trying to say is my brain is no different than your brain. We have the same brain. We have the same potential. I do not have a Jimmy Neutron brain. I do not have a high IQ or fucking photographic memory. I just put the time and effort in with all the resources we have at our fingertips to learn about the markets technically, fundamentally, and especially through my experience psychologically, and share that information with you all to the point that people pay me for even more information, and to the point that thousands of people watch those live streams or hundreds of people show up live to follow my trades or analysis or information. And guess what? That's me giving back. That's value. That's from my own pursuit of developing myself as an individual, and anybody can do that. You know what I mean? So don't forget, if this webinar itself woke you up a little bit, if this webinar even inspired you, look at all this shit you have here. What I would really suggest is starting from way back here. Corrupt central banking system, you are a debt slave. You know? But you have tons and tons of webinars. This is not no marketing website. This is not no Daniel Savage Q Banks. I'm not gonna go. We're not gonna do no daily vlogs. Going to go buy a car. Right? We're not gonna go do any of that marketing bullshit, IML bullshit. No. Pure raw value and information, whether it be about society, central banking systems, gold, oil, technicals, fundamentals. There's no clickbait here. This is a great webinar too, the normalizing losses in trading. And then the more societal ones started here. The pandemic. This is where I really started talking about like the pandemic and society and stuff here. Yeah, there's no Mamba effects bullshit, EMA, fucking Fibonacci, none of that shit here, man. All those marketers watch my shit and take information from me, and it's been proven time and time again. But I get the least amount of views because I don't use any guerrilla marketing tactics. You know what I mean? But yeah, if you guys want to watch this pandemic rant, the modern society is mentally weak and sick, how the masses are living in blissful ignorance, society is hypnotized, but how to break out for yourself, the 1% and the war on masculinity. Without having masculine males, you'll never have a resistance, revolution, or change in society, whether you like it or not. You need masculine traits to do that, and it's been proven through history. Masculine traits are where exerted that has the power and control set by the 1%. You know what I mean? The troll mindset, everyone is offended by everything. The importance, and guess what? When I talked about masculinity, everyone called me a woman hater. You're a woman hater. I was like, you guys just don't know the difference between masculinity and femininity. Nobody's talking about men versus women. You get what you realize how stupid people are? I bring a conversation talking about masculinity and people think it's man versus woman. No. And then those same people who call me a woman hater, sexist, I do a webinar on the importance of femininity. This shit didn't even get 1,000 views. Nobody even cares. This is how lost society is. They're all just like fucking snowflakes. Just always looking for an excuse, looking to do some bullshit. Got nothing going on. This is a great one too. Choose one, growth or feelings. You know what I mean? This is a good one too for new traders so you don't fall into the trap. Yeah. Calling someone a big titty hoe isn't sexist. That's called being descriptive. I describe what I see. It was a big titty hoe. So I said, hey, that's a big titty hoe. If it acts like a duck, if it talks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it's probably a fucking duck. You know what I mean? So it's that simple. You know? Okay, everybody. Thank you for attending. I appreciate it. Please share this around. Like, subscribe. I'll see you guys for the next London session next week. Next London trading session next week, everybody. Thank you guys for attending. I appreciate the support. If you guys can do me a favor, once I end the stream, it saves. So if you guys can comment on the save stream. Damien, you're fucking... Damien, you're a minimum wage worker, bro. Shut up, bro. Like, you're a minimum wage worker spamming in my chat, man. Like, please, you're part of the 99%. Stop, bro. Stop before you catch a roasting by all the hyenas in the chat. Trying to come here and look cool. Yeah, you do, bro. You work every day. Stop lying. Unless you want to prove it to us before we end this, you can't. You can't prove anything. Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a great Saturday. Whether you're locked down or not, keep it up, you know.